All right, so we're back for another deep dive, and this time we're taking a closer look at the Grace Lake District 127 newsletter. It's the thing that lands in your mailbox or inbox, packed with all sorts of updates about what's happening in our schools.
Yeah, definitely a valuable resource for the community to stay informed about, all the exciting things going on in D127.
Exactly. But let's be real. Who has the time to actually read through all those pages, right? That's where we come in. We've done the heavy lifting for you, pulling out the most interesting bits, the real highlights, so you can get the gist without having to spend hours digging through it all.
Think of it like a curated summary. We're giving you the key takeaways.
Right, like the Cliff Notes version. So today, our mission is to basically break down the latest D127 newsletter, understand what's been going on, what they're celebrating, what they're planning, basically giving you, the listener, a clear and concise picture of what's important in the district right now.
Definitely. We'll be looking at a range of things, student achievements, facility updates, maybe some financial stuff, a little bit of everything.
Exactly. A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. The newsletter kicks off with this big celebration of the very first D127 day, which happened back on January 27th of this year. Sounds like it was Big Bash. All about showcasing the best of the district.
Yeah, a real celebration of student achievement, creativity, community spirit. They really wanted to highlight all the positive energy within the district.
And they did it in a really cool way, too, by actually incorporating student talent into the event itself. Like, did you know the new D127 logo, the one they just unveiled? That was designed by a student.
Yeah, Elijah Bond from the class of 2025. He even got some hands-on experience through an internship with the art department while working on the logo.
That's fantastic. I love that they're giving students these kinds of real-world opportunities. I bet he learned a ton.
He actually mentioned in the newsletter that, quote, internships provide the type of real-world experience that simply cannot be replicated in the classroom, end quote.
He's not wrong. Talk about learning by doing, right?
Right.
And D127 Day wasn't just about a new logo. It sounds like there were all sorts of interactive things going on, too. Photo booths, treats. They even had 3D printed keychains.
Yeah, they really went all out. And then they had the Portrait of Excellence Awards, a really nice way to recognize all the amazing people who contribute to the district.
Absolutely. And they gave out awards in so many different categories.
Yeah.
It wasn't just teachers, it was support staff, paraprofessionals, even a community partner.
And what's even cooler is that the trophies for these awards were actually handcrafted by students in the woodworking and metals classes.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
And the culinary students catered the event, so they really involved students in every aspect of this celebration.
That's really impressive. It's like a whole, a hands-on learning experience for those kids.
Exactly. And speaking of recognizing excellence, they also highlighted that Danielle Carter, the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, received a pretty prestigious honor. She was named the IISPA Personnel Administrator of the Year for 2024-2025.
That's a big deal. I mean, that's recognition at the state level. It really shows she's making a difference.
Definitely. It really speaks to the quality of leadership within D127.
Absolutely. Now, the newsletter also spent some time talking about student internships, which, as we just saw with the logo designer, can be super valuable. They highlight a couple of really cool stories. Like there's Jackson Rowe, who did this internship at Scott Forge.
Oh, yeah. He got to work with CNC milling, which is basically using computers to precisely shape metal.
That sounds pretty high tech.
It is. And it ties in perfectly with his passion for aerospace. Apparently, he's always been fascinated by space.
Which makes sense because the newsletter mentions that he's actually been accepted into a space operations program. I mean, talk about reaching for the stars.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And as if that wasn't enough, he also used his CNC milling skills to create a custom metal chess set.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. He sounds like a very talented young man.
He does, a real testament to the kind of hands-on learning that D127 is promoting. And then there's a story of Johanna Schober and Gabriella John Fedor, who did a legislative internship at State Representative Favor Dias's office.
Oh, wow, a government internship. That's a totally different experience.
Right. They got to work on everything from social media and outreach to brainstorming policy ideas.
So like real-world experience in the political sphere.
Exactly. And get this, Johanna was actually offered a full-time position as a constituent liaison after her internship.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. A job offer straight out of an internship. What a great opportunity.
Yeah, shows how valuable these internships can be. And Gabriella is interested in international work, so this internship definitely gave her a taste of what that might be like.
It sounds like D127 is really making sure their students are ready for whatever path they choose after graduation.
Yeah, they're definitely emphasizing those connections between the classroom and the real world. And the newsletter also mentions that the number of students participating in internships is growing every year.
That's great to hear. Now, shifting gears a little bit, the newsletter also highlights some of the events and traditions happening in the schools. One that stood out to me was Grace Lake Central's Veterans Day celebration.
Oh, yeah, that's a long-standing tradition at Grace Lake Central, and what's really special is that it's entirely student-led.
That's amazing. So the students are the ones organizing this whole event.
Yep. They plan it, they run it, everything. And they invite veterans from all different eras, World War II, Vietnam, Iraq, to come and share their stories with the students.
That must be so powerful hearing those firsthand accounts.
It is. The veterans who participated said it was really emotional for them, being able to connect with the younger generation and pass on their experiences. And for the students, I mean, that's history coming alive right before their eyes. You can't learn that from a textbook.
I bet. And the newsletter mentions that over 100 veterans attended this year's event.
Yeah, it's a big event, and it really showcases the community's respect for those who have served our country. They also mentioned that all of the student organizations got involved, and everyone was holding up these signs that said, "I honor." And then during the national anthem, this really moving moment happened where all the veterans stood up. It sounds like it was a really beautiful tribute.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely sounds incredibly moving. It's great to see the schools fostering that sense of patriotism and gratitude. And speaking of Grace Lake Central, there's another individual they highlight. Glenn Roque, a teacher at the school who just graduated from the U.S. Army War College.
Oh, yeah, with a Master of Strategic Studies degree, no less. Pretty impressive.
Very impressive. That kind of dedication to continuing education is really admirable. And it's interesting how his commitment to education goes hand in hand with his military service.
It really does. It's
Yeah,
just a strong sense of leadership and a commitment to serving others, both in the classroom and in the military.
absolutely. Now, moving over to Grays Lake North, the newsletter talks about their winter art show, which has become a bit of a tradition there. This is actually their 6th year doing it.
Yeah, it's become a really popular event, and it's all about celebrating student creativity. The idea is to make sure every single student in first semester art classes has their work displayed.
So it's not a competition, it's more of a showcase.
Exactly. They want to encourage self-expression and give all students a chance to shine, regardless of their skill level.
I love that. Art should be for everyone. And they even incorporated some interactive elements into the show to engage the community, right?
Yeah, they had things like collaborative art projects and opportunities for visitors to create their own artwork. The art teachers at Grays Lake North, Randy Schweitzer, Kelly Bott, and Megan Crowley, they really put a lot of effort into making this event special.
That's wonderful. Now let's switch gears one last time and talk about the district's finances and facilities. The newsletter starts off by highlighting their strong financial track record. They've earned financial recognition from the Illinois State Board of Education for 10 years in a row.
That's a big deal. It means they're managing their finances responsibly and transparently. And on top of that, they've maintained an AA plus bond rating, which is pretty impressive.
That's a sign of a really healthy financial situation, which ultimately benefits the students.
Absolutely. A strong bond rating like that means they can borrow money at lower interest rates, which saves the district money in the long run.
And they put that money to good use. The newsletter mentions they invest an average of $4 million annually on scheduled maintenance for their facilities.
That shows a real commitment to keeping the schools in good shape.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's an interesting tidbit. Taxes collected actually decreased after some bonds expired back in 2021.
Yeah, they point out that this has resulted in average savings of around $600 for a home valued at $250,000.
Not bad. It's always nice to see a little tax relief.
Definitely. And looking ahead, they have some big capital projects planned for the summer of 2025. They're adding air conditioning to all the gyms and field houses and building a solar array field. And get this, they're funding these projects through existing resources, so no new taxes are needed.
That's great. It sounds like they're really committed to being fiscally responsible while still investing in the future.
Absolutely. And they break down how they spend their money. 77% goes to the education fund, which covers things like salaries, benefits, classroom supplies, technology, all the essentials. Then there's 10% for operations and maintenance of facilities, 5% for transportation, 3% for capital projects, and 5% for other things like debt service and retirement.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the D127 newsletter, it's clear that this is a district that's active and engaged on so many levels, celebrating achievements, providing hands-on learning, honoring veterans, fostering creativity, and of course, managing their finances responsibly.
It's a really comprehensive picture of what's going on in the district right now.
Exactly. And it gives us, the listeners, a real sense of the priorities and values that are driving D127 forward.
Definitely.
And that brings us to our final thought for you. Considering everything we've discussed today, from student design logos to aerospace internships to carefully planned finances, what does this tell us about the role of a modern school district? Is it simply about academics, or is it something more? How are these different initiatives interconnected in preparing students for the future? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.